So many people have asked me over the years, how did Wilson Phillips come to be? What was the genesis? And I want to share with you guys today that exact story. Second to having Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, Wilson Phillips, bar none, was the greatest ride of my life. But first, it all starts here. My life growing up was predictably unpredictable. I knew that I wanted to be an actress. That was the only thing I wanted to do with my life. I was very secure in that and confident in that. So my mom wouldn't let me act professionally until I was 18. She was just very firm about that. She didn't want me to turn out to be like a Hollywood statistic with, child actors. I got the part in a mking movie called 2 Moon Junction, and it had light nudity in it. And my mom read the script and she was like, "Over my dead body are you doing this movie?" And I was like, "I'm 18, I'll do whatever I want." And she was like, "Great, move out, see ya, go get your own place, because you're not doing that movie under this roof." But she did allow me to do a little bit of modeling. Once I turned 18, I got an agent and I started going out on auditions, and pretty quickly I started to land jobs. I did a movie called The Invisible Kid. That was my first feature film. I landed a non-speaking role in the movie Some Kind of Wonderful with Eric Stoltz and Mary Stuart Masterson and Leah Thompson. I also landed a role in Say Anything with John Cusack and Ione Skye. And I believe my only line in that movie was, "I'll be in the kitchen, baby." Landed a role with Jason Bateman in a movie called Moving Target. Then I went on to do Caddyshack 2, which if you haven't seen it, run out to go see Caddyshack 2. You must rent it tonight. It's absolutely one of the best movies ever made. But I never really loved the whole auditioning process. Even though I was quite good at it, I just hated how nervous I would always get. It was just like, I felt like I wanted to throw up. And I was very blessed and I got a lot of work, but a lot of things I didn't get. And you work 3-4 days on memorizing the lines and, standing in front of the mirror and trying to get it just right. And then you go in for your audition and nothing. And it was just so disappointing. And I just remember hitting a wall with it and just feeling like, I don't know if I have it in me to continue doing this. But, I plugged away at it. I just kept going. And then one day my phone rang. On the other end of the line was this very nice man, and he proceeded to say, "Would you ever be interested in doing sort of like a We Are the World of Celebrity Children song?" And I was like, "Huh? What?" "Yeah, like we get a bunch of celebrity musicians' kids like Moon Zappa and Ziggy Marley." So I said, "Sure. Would you like me to call Carney and Wendy Wilson? Maybe they would be interested." He was like, "Oh, are you kidding? That would be amazing. Call Carney and Wendy Wilson." I called them up and I was just like, "Hey guys, so I got a phone call," and I told them what this guy had said, and they were like, "Yeah, we're down, but you should come over, like we should sing together. It's been forever since we've sung together," because of course we grew up together and we used to sing all the time. And we proceeded to sing, oh my gosh, we slipped in Heart CDs, we slipped in Fleetwood Mac CDs, we slipped in Eagles CDs, and we just sang along. I just sang the middle part and Wendy took the high and Carney took the low, and there was just this sound that came out. When Carney and Wendy's mother, Marilyn, walked into the room and she goes, "What are you guys doing?" And we said, "We're just singing." And she was like, "You guys sound incredible. You guys have a sound." And we were like, "We do?" But I kind of knew it in my heart too, that there was just this vibrational thing going on when we were harmonizing that was unmistakable. But the whole We Are the World concept project thing fell apart really fast, but we continued singing together. And it wasn't very long after that that we decided we wanted to form a group. I said, well, why don't we just call my mom and see what she says? So I called my mom and I was like, hey mom, so Carney and Wendy and I want to start a group and we were wondering if you could help us out. And she was like, oh, you do? We said, yeah. And she said, well, what kind of a group? And we said, like a harmony group. And she said, well, why don't you just call Richard Perry? So we said, all right, we will. So we call up Richard Perry, and he was the producer to the Pointer Sisters and to some other really big bands and groups. He said, listen, the three of us have started to formulate a sound together. We'd like to start a group, and we were wondering if you would be interested in just hearing us sing. So he was like, he kind of had a deep voice like this. And he was like, yeah, could you be here tomorrow at around 6? And we said, sure. So we drove up this long, windy mountain in Beverly Hills area, and we went to his house, and he said, all right, so, what do you have prepared for me? And we sat up in front of him in a line, and we went, Dare my wild heart. And there was a silence. And he goes, that's it? That's all you got? And we said, yeah, that's all we got. And he just burst out laughing and he fell backwards. And he was like, that is perfect. Meet me at the studio on Wednesday and we're gonna record some songs. So we went to the studio on Wednesday and we were basically digging through the trash can for old Pointer Sisters songs that they didn't want to record, and we were recording them. We started demoing them. We really worked on honing in our sound, claiming that Wilson Phillips signature sound, and we didn't have our name for our group yet. As a matter of fact, Richard Perry wanted to call our group Pretzels with Mustard. No, I'm not kidding you. And he also thought maybe the Doorknobs would be a great idea. So of course, all of this was, extremely exciting for the three of us. And we were just grateful to be in the studio recording, and we loved what we were hearing. We weren't professionals yet. So Richard turned to us one day and he said, you guys have to start writing your own music. And we were like, well, we're not songwriters. And he said, well, you are now. I remember thinking to myself, well, I took piano lessons for a couple of years, I think from about 6 to 8 years old. Maybe I still remember something. So I started plugging away at my mom's piano, and I was really hitting just like all these horrible, really awful ear-bending keys. And my mother would literally beg me to stop, but I just kept doing it because I felt something sort of erupting inside of me as I was pressing on the keys. Oh, it gives me chills now just thinking about it. But after about 2 hours of plugging away, I just started singing, how many times have I tried to turn this love around? And then it went on and on, and I wrote the first verse, and I called Carney and Wendy and I said, guys, I think I'm on to something here. Would you come over? I'm writing a song right now and I really want you guys to write it with me. And sure enough, they were both available and they both came over and we sat down at my mom's piano, and by the end of the day, we had Release Me, which ended up being a #1 hit on the American Billboard charts for 2 weeks. After we wrote Release Me and sang it for Richard, he said, okay, now it's really time for you guys to work with the big boys. And I'm gonna put you together with an amazing songwriter, and his name is Glenn Ballard. We didn't know who Glenn Ballard was, but we showed up at his house a couple of days later. When I tell you that the chemistry between the four of us was so, for lack of a better word, magical. We literally called Glenn our fourth member. The minute we walked in Glenn's door, we sat down and he was like, so do you guys have any ideas? And we said, well, we did write this one song. And he was like, well, great, play it for me. We played him Release Me, and his jaw dropped. And he said, are you guys kidding me? And he went and he got his mic. We started putting tracks together, and an hour later he had a track of Release Me, and he was like, can you sing that? Can you guys sing that together right now at this mic? And we were like, sure. And yeah, we sang Release Me, we made the demo, and all of us just had the chills from head to toe when we heard it back that day. And we knew we had something very, very special on our hands. It wasn't too long after we wrote Release Me that we wrote Hold On. The track was written, just the track. So no melody, no lyrics, just the track, the music. So he gave us each, the cassette tape and said, all right, so go home and just listen to it a few times and see if you come up with any ideas and come back tomorrow. And I slipped the cassette into the tape deck, and I just started playing it over and over and over again. Suddenly, I start to get this melody in my head. Okay? I didn't have words for it, but it was just going in my brain. And I parked in front of my mom's house when I got there, and I got out the memo pad and I got a pen, and I had that in my car because we had been writing so much with Glenn. I just started writing down some lyrics, and I thought, well, I'm gonna write about what I'm going through in my life right now. And I'm gonna cry. I had just walked through the darkest time of my entire life. I had decided that I was gonna get clean and sober, and that I was gonna join Alcoholics Anonymous, and that I was gonna go to meetings, and that I was never gonna do drugs again. And I was 19 years old, and I had really made this vow to myself and to God to turn my whole life around. It was just a very powerful time in my life, and a very transformative time in my life, where I really made some gigantic decisions which ended up changing the entire trajectory of my life. It just flooded out of me, all of the lyrics and the melody, and I had the entirety of the song probably written down and finished in about an hour, I want to say. It was really fast. It was like a fast birth. You know what I mean? When the baby just goes, that's what it was like for me. And Hold On. Following day, I went to the studio with Glenn and Carney and Wendy, and I got out my memo pad and I slipped the tape in, and I sang it from beginning to end, and everybody loved it. So we recorded it that afternoon. So we had Hold On, Release Me, Hold On, Release Me. And then we went on to write the song You're in Love. We were truly on fire with our songwriting. It was just this incredible force that was behind all four of us. And we just kept spitting out new songs. And when Glenn came in, because we had written the verses and the bridge for You're in Love, but we didn't have a chorus. And when Glenn walked in and said, I think I got it. I think I got it. And he just sang, you're in love, that's the way it should be, 'cause I want you to be happy. We were like, what? Yes, you nailed it. It was really, really an exciting time. I mean, we used to just drive our cars and listen to these demos over and over again and play them for our friends, and our friends started to like the songs. But, they were just our personal babies. The whole world hadn't heard them yet, of course. Glenn said to us, well, are you guys shopping this demo around at record companies? And we were like, well, not really, we don't really know how to take that next step. And Richard Perry stepped in once again, once he heard the songs, and of course he fell in love with them. He made a few phone calls, and one of the first people he called was a man named Artie Mogul. And he had just signed with a hot new label that literally had nobody on it, called SBK Records. And the only reason that it was a really hot label was because there was a man named Charles Koppelman who'd had an incredible track record in business, and he just wanted to start a record company, and he had lots of dough to do it. So we took a meeting with this Charles Koppelman man, and when I tell you that he wined and dined and said all the right things, we were very attracted to the idea of signing with SBK Records, but our lawyer convinced us that we needed to take a few more meetings before we made our decision. We did meet with some other record labels, and those all went extremely well, but we didn't get that sort of palpable, sort of indescribable, intangible feeling that we got when we met with Charles Koppelman. We just felt like he really got the vision of our group. We may have these celebrity parents. People automatically assumed that, of course, this record deal was just handed to us on a silver platter. Who wouldn't like the idea of putting the Beach Boys and the Mamas and Papas Kids together and formulating a group? But that's really not how it went down. The music really stood on its own, and we sold the records to prove it. We signed the record deal and we went right to work on the album, and it was the most creative, the most exciting, most fulfilling, most memorable time of my life. It was so exciting to get in the car every morning and go to the studio. It was truly a daunting task to try and get the three of us to record something together at one mic in the studio at the same time, because all it would take would be one look that either of us would give each other, and that would be it. We would all be laughing hysterically, crying, tears coming out of our eyes, and unable to speak because we just triggered that in each other. So yeah, they learned really fast that if they wanted to get something, they were going to have to separate us. They were never going to get anything with us together. But they did get Release Me, which is 3-part harmony from beginning to end, but it took a very long time. Recording our album was wildly fulfilling and exciting, but I will say that it was the most tedious process we had ever been through in our lives. It was grueling. It was like we would sing something 20 times and they'd be like, "That was perfect! One more time!" And we were just like, "Oh, you have to be kidding us." There was no better feeling than to know I was going to be with my best friends and with the angel, Glenn Ballard, and to be creating and to be developing this album that we knew was going to be released to the world. And we didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but it was terribly exciting. We were going to make an imprint on the music industry. We finished recording the album, but before we actually got to the finish line, something really tragic happened. Glenn Ballard's newborn baby passed away. Her name was Bannon, and she, I think, was only maybe 6 months old. We were in the process of trying to figure out what would be that last song for the album that could be a potential single. Glenn started writing a song called "The Dream Is Still Alive," and it gets me emotional. We wrote and recorded "The Dream Is Still Alive," and that song was written for Bannon. I know that Glenn needed to purge, needed to write a song of hope. It's a beautiful song, and it did end up on the album, and it was one of our singles. As painful as the time that was for all of us, I think that it was a real godsend that we all had this album and these harmonies and this new venture to look forward to. Not to distract us from what had just happened, but it was just so alive. It was so tangible and exciting. We all had something to live for. On May 8th, 1990, the Wilson Phillips debut album was released. I'd like to say that we were like an overnight success, but Hold On was our first single. It just took a long time for Hold On to climb the charts. Every single week it was like incremental, like it would go from 99 to 98. You know what I mean? It was painfully slow. We did a huge radio tour and we went to every single city that you can imagine. Carney and Wendy and I had to go to Japan for a radio promo tour for the debut album. And we're staying at this big, luxurious hotel. We knew that we were going to hear whether Hold On had gone to number one. And at that time, Madonna was number one with her song Vogue. And I mean, we all were such huge Madonna fans. And just the fact that it was like, Wilson Phillips, Madonna, we were just mind blown. We couldn't believe that was our reality. We all promised each other that if either of us got a phone call in the middle of the night, that we would call the other and let each other know that, Hold On had gone to number one, because obviously the States was going to find out. They were going to find out first. So we all went to bed that night, separate bedrooms and separate hotel rooms. And Carney was sleeping in the next room over. And in the middle of the night, I hear this scream that was like the highest, most shrill, I don't even know if that works in that context, scream I had ever heard in my life. And I knew in that instant that Hold On had gone to number one. I knew it was Carney in the other room, and I knew that Hold On had gone to number one. And I raced out of my hotel room, and I went into the hallway, and I knocked on her door, and she came bursting out, and she was like, "It went to number one!" And she was squeezing me, and then Wendy came out. She heard the commotion, and we were all jumping and screaming in the hallway. We could not believe it. It was really a beautiful moment in time. I'll never forget that. After Hold On went to number one, Release Me went to number one and stayed there for 2 weeks. And then that was preceded by You're in Love, and that went to number one as well. We released Impulsive, and sweet Wendy Wilson sang the lead on that song, and boy, she just killed it. She did such a great job. It's such a sexy, sultry song, and it was so perfectly tailored for her voice. Wendy is one of the kindest, most sincere, most generous, most loving, most authentic people I've ever met in my entire life. She's just a beautiful human being, and I love that woman so, so much. Carney, just such a blessing in my life. Don't know anybody else like her, and I never will. Just from a very early age, I felt an inexplainable connection with Carney. We just hit it off. She's one of the most incredible entrepreneurs I've ever met in my life. I mean, she is a go-getter. Yeah, so back to the story of Wilson Phillips. We were nominated for, I believe, 6 Grammys in 1992, I believe. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to check that. I could be wrong. We did not end up winning a Grammy that night. But my mom and my dad escorted me to the Grammys, and that was very, very special for me to have my father with me that night, by my side, and of course my mother. It was also very special because they had won a Grammy. It was an extraordinary night for my parents. So it really was like we had all come full circle. Being in Wilson Phillips is a blessing, and it's been one of the greatest achievements of my life outside of marrying Billy and having my children, and of course, receiving Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, number one Lord. I truly do feel so fortunate to have been able to have that experience and to have been able to take that ride, and especially with Carney and with Wendy, because we were all so close. We ended up selling 12 million records worldwide, and that was quite an accomplishment. There have been a handful of girl groups that have emerged over the past few decades. The Supremes, the Spice Girls, the Go-Go's, En Vogue, Destiny's Child, TLC. Honestly, there aren't that many girl groups. There's tons of bands, there's tons of solo artists, but girl groups is something that kind of stands in a league of its own. I am forever indebted to Carney and Wendy and Glenn Ballard for that experience and that wild roller coaster ride of being in Wilson Phillips. And we still do one concert a month, pretty much we average. Obviously with COVID, that's been impossible. It's been such a gift to be able to still sing with the girls all these years later. And now we have 9 children between the 3 of us. And we just have an unshakable, unbreakable love for one another and respect for one another. I will hold it dearly to my heart for the rest of my days. Yeah, thank you for listening to my Wilson Phillips extraordinaire story. God bless you guys. Peace of Christ. Bye-bye.
Hey you guys, if this video blessed you in any way, I pray that you will subscribe, and I also pray that you'll press that little button next to the subscribe, because that is an alert button and it will give you a notification every single time there's a brand new calpreach. And of course, share, because sharing is caring, and you just never know who's going to find the peace of Christ. Amen.